BA degree from linguistics and Latin American literature, and also a BA of fine arts, and both from the Catholic University of Chile. And she has also a PhD in American Studies from the Institute of Advanced Studies of the University of Santiago. And she's now at the moment an academic of the art department of the Alberto Hurtado University in Santiago. And the dialogue partner is, first of all, Sufei Wang. I think I didn't present you with your research interest. I will do this now. She's a researcher and lecturer at the Department of Art History and Aesthetics at the University of Kassel. And her interests cover intercultural philosophy, phenomenology and aesthetics, theory of art, image theory, media culture and design theory, and she pays especially attention to sensitivities in the environment. We heard about that already and had a discussion about that, which are shaped by natural, cultural, and technological factors, as well as by today's mediatization processes. And the other dialogue partner, or the second dialogue partner, is Roberto Rubio. He's here on the other side of the globus. He's associate professor at the Department of Philosophy at the University of the Alberto Hurtado University in Santiago de Chile. He's currently working on synthetic images, and his research interest focuses on the potentialities of digital images in the information regime. And for his research, he considers the theoretical approaches of Lev Manovich and Friedrich Kittler. And myself, I'm also part of this dialogue. So I'm a professor at the Department of Fine Art at the University of Ludwigsburg. And my research interests are currently image theory and the image didactics from an intercultural perspective, and especially in respect to the relation of theoretical and practical approach. And in this context, for example, I'm investigating design or image theories, design and image teaching theories for their implicit image theory aspects. So I think we're going to start the presentation, because Paula prepared some presentation about her artwork, and I'm going to share this now. Otherwise, we are confused. But you already can see it. So you can have it here or here. I don't know which is better.
And to move it is...
yeah. Oh, exactly. Perfect. So I think you can start with your presentation.
Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. Well, I'm going to read a presentation because my English is not that good, but then we can dialogue with each other. The drawing that I entered in this image chain was created through a series of procedures similar to the one I have been using a few years back to make my modeling clay pictures. That's the way that I call it. These procedures were adjusted not only to the particularity of this collective exercise, but also to the present technical landscape, which is quite different to the one in the early year 2000, when I began to work on my modeling clay pictures. I think it's necessary then to begin by explaining what those pictures were about, the small but meaningful variation throughout their development, and finally the relationship with the image created for this encounter.
I can switch.
Thank you. In the early year 2000, when I did not yet have clarity about what I wanted to do artistically, I grabbed a color photograph that I had taken years before on a beach in Uruguay. The center of the image was occupied by the family of the friend I have been holidaying with the sea behind them. In the background, there was a lady sitting on a sun chair and a couple walking in the sun. People unnoticed by me when I took the photograph. This is the next one.
I think it's...
Without a lot of thoughts, I digitally scanned the photograph, and then on the computer I cropped the two sections where these two... where these characters were, resizing the sections to 3-4 centimeters. I then printed both fragments on transparent mica. I cut them with a scissor and using a frame I had lying around the image before, I made 2 slides whose standard size is 3-4 centimeters. Finally, I project this slide into a sheet of paper hanging on the wall, and using a charcoal pencil, I trace each line of the printing width, adjusting the intensity of the stroke accordingly in order to make the figures emerge. Next image, please. I repeated this exercise a few times using other anonymous faces and landscapes taken from different household photographs. At that point, I was interested on those secondary elements which seemed to have been photographed unconsciously at other times. However, my interest moved quickly to the similarity between the liner weave created by the printing over the mica produced by the printer itself and other more recognizable and meaningful weaves, such as the one produced by the television monitor, which was based on cathodic rays back then. 1,625 lines on the pulse system and 625 lines for the NTSC system. This is how I started to use slides taken from TV instead of photographs printed on mica. The next one, please. To trace the lines of the weave, I began to add color pencil and oil painting to the charcoal I was already using, introducing other colors besides the black and white I used on my first drawing. The photograms I used as models were selected for different reasons. I was working with scenes from Louis Malle Sassida's Le Métro, a film of 1960, mainly because I really like Raymond Queneau novels on which the film is based, as well as the wash-up patina of the film. And it's quite a delirious film, by the way. Another time I worked around Roberto Rossellini's film Roma, Città Aperta, 1945, because it had a scene that alluded to equally accidental and incriminatory photographic portraits, which seems consistent with my own work's operation. The same applies to Antonioni's Blow Up, on which I base a series of big format pictures later on. Nevertheless, at some point it came to me that instead of reproducing the weave on a surface using those materials, pencil or paint, I could produce a self-sustaining weave, in the literal sense. This is an image completely made by the weave, without then a surface like wood or canvas to be drawn, painted or glued on. Besides the wall itself. I said wolf. It was then when I thought about working with modeling clay. It seemed a material that could work quite well, given that it can be mixed to obtain different colors. It can be molded like a noodle or a rod similar to the line of a television weave, and it can be stuck on a wall and later be removed. This idea worked perfectly in my mind, but in practice it failed miserably. Indeed, I could build an image on the wall by sticking consecutive lines of modeling clay, but eventually the pieces of clay start to fall off until only half of the work was still standing by the time I was to evaluate it by the teachers at the art school. From this experience, I discarded the eternally seductive idea of creating fleeting works, but I continued to use modeling clay as material. To create the modeling clay pictures, I selected a scene from a given film, I put it on a VHS or DVD machine, pausing it, and then I photographed the screen using an analog camera loaded with a slide film. Since the film and the development were not cheap, I took a special care in using the wall roll, so I photographed different scenes or even different movies on the same roll. Often, the scene I was most interested in when taking the photograph did not seem as attractive when the film was developed, and vice versa. The photographs I took to finish off the roll often became pictures. The next one, please. Once obtained, the slide was projected over a wooden stretched painting in white, using, of course, a slide projector, and not a data projector as people that work with projections do nowadays. Over the projection I use as a guide, I stuck the different modeling clay rods to obtain a reproduction of the original image. Although we can clearly ask ourselves, what do we understand by original image in a work that consists of so many transfers and mediations? However, by the time I was working towards the final exam of my art bachelor's degree, I realized that I was not generating the illusion of a television weave, but rather the weave of a loom or upholstered. In fact, those were the exact words of one of the members of the evaluation commission, and they were not meant as a compliment. The problem was not so much that the pictures looked like something made on a loom and not television screens, but the fact that they didn't even look like they were made of modeling clay. At that moment, I decided I had to find a way to make the pictures work as a screen image, but also to manifest its technical and material constitution that to me was loaded with meaning. This is to say, the pictures should maintain the uncertainty around what they seem to be and what they really were. By sticking modeling clay rods to the wood, I was achieving a color weave, similar maybe to a TV screen, but it was a flat weave. It lacked precisely the manifestation of the thickness of the modeling clay, which distinguished it from pictorial materials such as the oil or acrylic paint, but also from the threads or wool in a loom. It was then, this is okay, yes. It was then, half joking, I tried making rods, and that's what we are seeing now. I tried making rods with a toy from the Play-Doh brand. I don't know if you know that, Play-Doh brand, which basically consists of a device where you put some modeling clay on one side, you then push a lever and the clay comes out in a certain shape, like to make sausages, I think, which depends on the shape of the output hole, the mold, if you will. If it is a rectangle, then you obtain a parallelopipe. I don't know how you pronounce this in English. It is a circle, you get a cylinder, and so on. The shape I decided to try was the triangle, which results in a solid called pentaedron, similar to the Toblerone bar, the chocolate. This shape is good because not only it is volumetric, like you see in the image, but once stuck to the surface, it projects a shadow over the lower modeling clay line. The result is a weave that is perceived as it was composed, but alternate lighter and darker color lines, which is what I initially attempted to achieve. The next one, please. I followed this technique over several pictures, among which there were some triptych and polyptych works based on consecutive moments in a single scene, with the purpose of somehow trying to integrate the sequential aspect of cinema. I also made some pictures based on, the next one please, based on black and white films where I use a color palette made of tonal tint variations such as violet and green, since during the transfer from the TV to the photograph and even the transfer from the tape to the screen, the image had oddly enough acquired those colors. The next one, please. Another aspect of the color that informs of the successive transfers in my work is the so-called chromatic aberration. The magenta or fuchsia halo that surrounds some of the figures is not present on the originals, nor in the screen, but results from an imperfection of the camera lens used to photograph it. Yes. On the other hand, I sometimes decide to include the film subtitles. The next, please. Not only to stress the mediated character of the image they were based on, but also for the attractive thickness that those texts acquire when represented in such a way. Also, the next one, please. In one of my latest works, I cover a section of the wooden stretcher in melted modeling clay, attempting to emulate the foggy sound resulting from an accident on the slide used as a model. Slides are a type of photograph that cannot be copied, even less in this case with such a damaged slide. The next one, please. In any case, the search for the best way to represent the television wave kept being a constant endeavor in my work. The next one, please. For a picture that was part of an exhibition in 2009, I decided that on top of the horizontal weave, I had to include a vertical weave composed of black lines, which should better match the perception of a TV screen as seen from a given distance. The next one, please. Including this weave meant that the modeling clay pieces in the middle ended up with the same size. Let me say it again. Included this weave meant that modeling clay pieces in the middle ended up with the same size. Up to this point, the rods had the same height, but the width was defined by me depending on the area to cover. However, when they were all the same and distributed around a reticular grid, which resulted from the juxtaposition of the usual horizontal weave with the vertical weave I was adding, the modeling clay picture started to look as a kind of image that was haunting me, but I had decided to ignore digital photography. Working with a regular weave, it became more evident that the modeling clay pieces were functioning as the constitutive unit of the picture. This is a pixel. Of course, this brief history about the exercise around the television weave is not linear. It was back and forth. The next one, please. There are some pictures, like the one I am showing here, where I did not use a vertical weave, as it could have been difficult to depict such a complex motif as a spider web. I remember now yesterday's presentation. As a spider web, which is a web on its own. Then in some of my latest modeling clay pictures, the next one, please, I introduced an important variation. The use of vertical weaves of different colors in order to reproduce the characteristic depth of field effect of photography. I discovered that, the next one please, by using a fainter black color or even magenta, I could get an out of focus zone, while weaving with a darker black color, I could get a focused zone, such as the face. I don't really know the reasons for this phenomenon, so I settled for the sentence that I once heard from a printer. The black color outlines, el color negro dibuja en castellano. All right, so let's go back to the present and the image chain that collapsed here. The next one, please. The image I was to use as the basis for another image, the one which has been just presented, is a kind of digital photomontage we could consider more abstract than figurative, but that somehow recalls a landscape, at least for me, not only because the upper section contains a cloudy sky, but also because the rest of the fragments are arranged like the size of a valley. Another aspect that attracted my attention was that, aside from the sky picture, all fragments correspond to different textures. Now I understand why. I'm very happy to have this conversation. Textures like jute fabric, jute in Spanish, painting over canvas, or even wood, or rather the imitation of wood, which with its unique grain. A more problematic aspect of the image was the presence of female naked body parts, the one that the other two artists just been talking about. Presence of female naked body parts over the aforementioned textures. They seem a bit disturbed, for me at least, and furthermore, they don't integrate for me completely with the rest of the image. I decide then that my visual response will still contain limbs, arms, hands, fingers, but those limbs will be part of the film scenes reproduced, part of the diegesis, if you will, without showing also the faces of the people they belong to. The next one, please. Since the answer of each One of the people participating in this chain has to be created using our own visual language, our own artistic procedures. I wanted to keep the idea of the combination of different textures, even respecting the outline of each, but using the one I usually work with. This is the wave of television screens. To create this image, however, I use color pencil instead of modeling clay. On the one hand, because the time allocated to create this image, 1 month, was not enough to build a work of this kind. And on the other, because I consider that a digital image will not have been able to convey the tactile quality of this material. The reason to select the films, the next one please, the reason to select the films I used to create each fragment is equally meaningful. As I mentioned it at the beginning of this presentation, the technical landscape by the time I start the production of my modeling clay picture is quite different to the current one. To take a picture of an analog television where you can play a VHS or DVD using a slide camera that you can then actually develop is not as easy as it was in the first decade of the century, even if somehow I don't feel like a lot of time has gone by. This is why, to make this drawing, I decided to use some of the slides I took years ago to create some of my pictures, such as one based on a scene of Stanley Kubrick, Barry Lyndon, the next one please. Another two based on François Truffaut, Fahrenheit 451, the next one please. And another one from Joseph Mankiewicz, All About Eve, the next one please. The resulting image then is some sort of photo montage. We can go back to my image in the image chain. The resulting image then is some sort of photo montage of drawn collage. However, collage is all the same, collage. However, what I try to emulate are not really the movie scenes upon which it's based, but the way the television draws them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula, for your introduction into your work. So I don't know, Roberto, how we want to, or Isufa, how we want to proceed. We surely we have some questions about the work of Paula and about making images. So yeah, Roberto, you want to start?
I would like to start. Yeah. Thank you very much, Paula. Your work can be understood as a proposal to place images in a new format, but in a way that the old format is still recognizable. This connects with the image chain project as it promotes the process of reacting to an image by producing a new one. Based on this, I would like to know what rules do you follow when putting images into new format with new materials? Opinion, what principles should be respected when translating or transmitting images?
Thank you, Roberto. Well, yes, there's a lot of rules, but I think that the more important rule is that the resultant image has to be capable of show the content of the image which is based on, but almost the original medium of that image. What I'm trying to say is a modeling clay picture not only represents the movie, but also represents the TV screen itself. That's what I meant by medium. I don't think it's a rule for every image transfer, or even a rule for every traduction. I don't know how you say traduction. Traduction. In fact, I think it's not a rule for any traduction or any image transfer, because, for example, when a painter make a painting based on a photograph, not necessarily make explicit. How do you say? No, make explicit that is working from a picture and not from his own direct observation of the model. So I think it's a rule for my own work, but it's not a general rule for the transfer operations or productions or visual productions. So, and in that sense, something's a little bit odd occur because I think that like I said before, what I keep from the image image before in the image chain was the composition, no, and the sky, if you want, and the idea of this mutilated corpse, but the medium that is present here in my own image is the TV screen, so the television or the cinema, if you want, but not the digital medium, which is the medium used present in the image before. So I think it's not completely consequent with my own rule, what I did now. So.
Okay. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Yesterday at the exhibition, we have talked a lot about your production. I think I have had a better understanding of your background. Okay. In your presentation, you have a question, but didn't give an answer. I quote your question from your presentation. It is worthwhile asking, of course, what we understand by original image in a work with so many transfers and meditations. That's your question. I'd like to know your answer now. Another question is, for many appreciators, without pre-knowledge, without Vorkenntnisse in German, yeah, it is confusing to recept contemporary work like this Montaro work. Could you please give some methods, yeah, for the appreciators with in a situation, for example, in a museum, yeah. So
I don't know if I understand you. Do you think? How can I help the observers to understand my image without the
first question or second question?
Please, again, the first one again.
First one is your question.
Yeah.
I'd like to know your answer.
Original image has so many.
You have given such a question, but without answer. So.
Yeah. See, because I was trying to open that question, not because I wanted to answer it.
The relationship between original image and the reality of an image after so many transfers and meditations.
Yes. Because when I say that, I was talking about the image immediately before, like an original image. But then I realized that before that image, there are other images. So that's why I said, I don't know if we can consider this image like maybe the photograph taken to the TV screen, like an original image, because before that image is the TV screen, and before the TV screen is the movie itself, and before the movie projection, and the movie projection, maybe you can consider even the skin of the film, like the original movie, or like the original image, and then, so it's like a, in linguistics said semiosis ilimitada, limited semiosis, like you can always find another source, like another image source, like it's like it's more I don't know, maybe it does in translation, but it's more like a manifest than a question itself. It's like a manifest of an expression of a situation of art, maybe, or communication than a question itself. I can't answer what is an original image.
Yeah, and the second question.
Yes.
Could you please give some suggestions for non-expert not expert
yes.
to
understand
such a picture.
Well, I think the answer is in the image chain. Of course, this picture it can seem a little bit odd or interesting in the sense that it's like a collage, but not a collage where you glue different pieces of paper, but you draw the pieces. No? But I think that the meaning of this image, or to understand this image, or even to appreciate it, not to understand it, requires to see the whole image chain. So I don't think that there's a wall, necessarily a wall between cultures, different cultures, Chilean and German. In this case, I think that the whole chain, you understand me, no?
Chain, yeah.
Como this image function inside of that chain can
context.
Context. But maybe you were asking me before, and that connects with another other question, but maybe your question is about it is necessary to have seen the movies
that would be my question.
To appreciate this image, or maybe it is necessary to have seen my own work to appreciate this image.
Background.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that you can have different experience with the same art piece. The experience that you can have knowing that background, and the experience that you can have not knowing that that background, and they are different. I don't think that one is better than the other. It's like a more maybe not informative, I don't know, approach to the art, and a more informative approach to the same piece. But I think they are both valid, and there could be both enriquecedores. Enrich, yes. So in a different way, just.
May I just add a question to that?
Yes.
So you would say there is no misunderstanding possible of your image, or is there?
No, it could be. It could be. Yes, of course it could be. But I think that when you make a piece of art, you
just let it out.
Let it out, and
okay.
You can help the observer to understand what you wanted to do with the piece, but the observer eventually can understand it in other way. And what can you do? I think I'm very fan of an idea of that was in Marcel Duchamp's essay, when he said that when you make a work of art, the work of art, the result have a part that is that was not prevent for the artist, and a part that doesn't that you prevent but doesn't happen. It's like it's not that controllable as people tend to think. I think it's not that you don't have all the control, and I think that it's very odd to think that everyone's, even the people who have the knowledge of this background can experience a piece of art in the same way, or that it's a bad or a good way to experience. I think, of course, it helps to know these kind of things, but I'm not afraid to make things that could not be understood because people don't know this background.
I have an idea.
There is one question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Svante, you would like to ask something.
Yes, thank you, Paula, for your very interesting talk. Maybe my question fits into the point where the discussion is right now, because I think I have a question from the perspective of the recipient. So I do read your artworks as containing a message that is pretty strong in relation to its, let's say, politics / aesthetic content or message it tries to convey. And I do see this message as conveyed in both the technique and the content of the works, at least the ones you showed to us today, because I felt, but this is only me as a recipient, that you are actually trying to put and also to highlight you're putting a break into, let's say, the present zeitgeist or the present, the actuality we are living in. For instance, in the picture that we are just seeing right now, there is a black and white movie. There is even a fragment of a picture in which I think it is a butler in a former time holds some candles. And there's also a person who's talking on the phone in a way that these days nobody does anymore. Like you can see right now, I'm having these little cute white thingies here in my ears. So this is how communication these days happen. And so this is the part of the content side which I read in your works. And on the other hand, there's also this technical side of your work. And I had to think about a thinker. He's situated at the crossroad of architecture and philosophy of mind. His name is Lambros Malaforis. He's I think he's working at Oxford these days. And so he's basically doing theory also about pottery. And pottery is one of the oldest forms of human art. And in pottery, we humans, we form clay with our hands. And when I saw your works, the ones you showed us in the beginning, you also work with modeling clay. But I think what is crucial is that you work with this modeling clay without really modeling it. So if I'm correct, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong, most of the pieces of clay that you are introducing into your images, most of them have the same forms and sizes. And I found that I found this very interesting. Sorry. Because you seem also here to put a break in this human appropriation of technique or material that we are so used to. And I would be very curious in how you could spontaneously explain for me how these two facets interlink in your work. Did I make myself clear? Was it too long?
Yes. The two phases, you're meaning like this traditional way to work with clay, and this one that I
would say the technical side and the content side, and I would also be interested in how far you would agree with me reading this message into your works.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's like a little bit similar to one of the questions.
Maybe, yeah. But maybe I will add some questions.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. I think that cinema images and frames, film and frames, are a very interesting kind of image, because when I am thinking in the way we used to see cinema, no, in movie theaters, and cinema was projected to the screen. It's a very it seems like an unmaterial image. No, it's not unmaterial, but it seems like an unmaterial image. A very ephemera. No? So And it's not only unmaterial, it seems unmaterial, but the frames are 36 frames per second, so it's like you can apprehend that image, no? But at the same time, it's a very it's a image that causes fascination, no? And it's a very powerful kind of image, and it's a very hypnotic kind of image. And in the line that was what was Javier was telling this time ago, that it's that can make you cry. It's an image that can make you react in some ways. So I think that the material that I use and the technique that I use, that is very, it's a kind of mechanic, but at the same time it's very meticuloso, like meticulous. Thank you. It's like a way to express this need to attach to apprehend this kind of image. It's like the more unmaterial and the more the more fugacity of the image, the more solid, the more volumetric, no? Because it's like a sculpture material, not a pictorial material, the modeling clay. The more volumetric, the more heavy, and the more meticulously way of represent it. I think I'm very interested in that like paradox. I think like that contradiction.